Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, the US President-elect Donald Trump is holding another day of marathon talks with people who could become part of his new administration. But he's also found time for some business meetings too. Last week, Mr. Trump met developers involved with his Indian real estate interests, while reports claim foreign diplomats are clamouring to stay in his Washington, D.C. hotel in the hope of winning favours. Let's go live now to Jackie Long in Washington. Jackie.
Now, the question of a conflict of interest has dogged Mr. Trump since he first announced he was going to run. He's always argued that it's not an issue, and we saw there his new chief of staff stepping in to say once again this was not going to be a factor. Yet in the last hour or so, an extraordinary story has broken, which suggests that when the Argentinian president, Mauricio Macri, phoned Mr. Trump to congratulate him, Mr. Trump, businessman and president-elect, used the call to ask Mr. Macri if he could help speed up some building permits that Mr. Trump needs if he's to push ahead with a plan to build a major office block in Buenos Aires. Now, in the last few minutes, the president's office in Argentina has said that it denies this story. But this tells you just how potent an issue this is going to be for Mr. Trump.
I think so.
Trying to find the people who'll help him make America great again. And it's going.
Great, thank you. Great, man. Went great.
Well, great. A pageant of a different kind for Donald Trump. He used to own the Miss Universe contest. But the public bit of this was run on similar lines. The potential candidates for a place in his cabinet smiled a lot, but didn't get to say too much. Mr. Trump, locked away all weekend at his golf resort in New Jersey, isn't saying much either about another huge challenge, the conflict of interest between his global business empire and his new role.
So we were really happy. I mean,
his first post-victory interview was a family affair. Daughter Ivanka, clearly honoured.
It's incredibly exciting, and we're very grateful for the opportunity.
And in a move straight out of the Trump Business Bible, never miss an opportunity, a few days later, Ivanka Trump's jewellery company sent out a fashion alert promoting the $10,000 bracelet she'd been wearing during the interview. The company later issued an apology, saying it was still making adjustments post-election. And yesterday, Mr. Trump's new chief of staff took to the airways to reassure Americans they had nothing to fear.
There is going to be no violation of any of these rules, I can assure you of that. And as we move forward, those matters are going to be more clearly spelled out, and you're going to be aware of it.
The problem is, it doesn't look that way. Mr. Trump's family, inextricably linked to his business life, is now equally tied to his political life too. When Mr. Trump met the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, journalists were kept out. But the official photograph release showed Ivanka Trump and her husband, Jared Kushner, were there for at least some of the time. During the campaign, he said he'd be delighted to hand over his companies to the children.
I don't know if it's a blind trust of Ivanka, Don, and Eric run it, but is that a blind trust? I don't know.
Which critics point out would constitute an all-seeing trust rather than a blind one. And here at Trump's newest hotel, a perfect illustration of the strange and uncharted territory his victory has created. It's just a few blocks away from the White House, his new home come January. And just last week, it played host to more than 100 foreign diplomats, looking for somewhere new and convenient to spend the night, or hoping for some insight into the next American president. Rooms for the inauguration have sold out quickly. The line between Donald Trump, the businessman, and Donald Trump, the next president, at the moment at least, not exactly well defined. Mr. Trump made time for a meeting last week with 3 of his Indian business partners. They're building a Trump-branded apartment complex outside Mumbai. It was not a formal meeting, a spokesman said, but a courtesy call by the businessman. For Mr. Trump, though, a new reality. Every call, every meeting, every handshake has meaning now, like never before. One of the big questions, of course, is how much does all this matter? In a recent Politico Morning Consult poll, only 3 in 10 voters said that they believe Mr. Trump's children should be part of the administration, and only 1 in 4 say that certain Trump family members should be given security clearance. But this figure is also worth bearing in mind. Since the election, Mr. Trump's favourability rating has gone up 9 points, from 37 to 46%. So, meanwhile, Mr. Trump is back in Trump Tower in New York. He's been meeting senior politicians all day. He's got a number of key roles still to fill. And as he says himself, only he knows who the finalists are.
Jackie Long in Washington.
The opulent gilded lobby of Trump Towers has seen a succession of besuited visitors over the last few days. Cabinet hopefuls, foreign leaders, associates. So seamlessly have they processed towards the president-elect. It hasn't been entirely clear who's there for business and who for politics. Donald Trump, we understand now, likes to do things differently. He chooses Twitter over press conferences. He chooses family counsel over special advisors, his own hotels over buildings of state. For everyone else, the business of presiding over America would be a call to put all other interests aside. For Trump, it's not so clear. Is the opacity, the blurring of lines just initial confusion with an office maybe he himself never expected to win? Or is it all part of the game plan? I'm joined now by Richard Painter, the White House lawyer who advised President George W. Bush on ethics in government. Richard Painter, very nice to speak to you this evening. As an ethics lawyer, what do you see at the moment that you don't like?
Well, the first thing I ought to say is that the corruption potential in the Trump administration is a serious problem and something that we are going to have to sort out in the United States. But our friends across the Atlantic in England and Europe and around the world ought to take comfort in the fact that Donald Trump's personal and business life has absolutely nothing to do with what he said during the campaign. His personal life has nothing to do with the claptrap of the social conservatives, religious conservatives he pandered to. He had friends in the Islamic community, particularly rich Muslims, to whom he leased and sold apartments and did business deals over many years. And like most American businessmen, he has made enormous amounts of money off of global commerce. So the notion that the United States is somehow going to retreat from global commerce under President Trump is really sort of a joke. And so we will have to sort out the corruption problems, and there are many of them. But I do not see this presidency going in the direction that he talked about simply in order to pander to white working class voters with a protectionist agenda.
So you sound as if you're actually reassured by the breadth and scale of his business interests, if anything, but you keep on returning to this word corruption, and that's quite a fierce charge, allegation. So what do you worry about here?
Well, there is the potential for corruption here when you have a president who has enormous business holdings all over the world and is supposed to be conducting the affairs of the United States government and supervising people throughout the executive branch who are conducting the business of the United States government. We have a whole range of problems that could come up. People will be peppering his businesses with lawsuits. The plaintiffs' lawyers in the United States are more than happy to go after President Trump. As you know, they can sue at the drop of a hat. They don't have to pay the losers' fees if they sue and lose, as they would in many other parts of the world. So we're going to see lots of that. And we saw how litigation against the president worked out under President Clinton. And I think that this is going to be a very bad situation if President Trump does not dispose of these assets around the world. And another problem is the potential for foreign government money to get into the Trump business empire to his financial benefit. And that would be prohibited by the emoluments clause of the United States Constitution. We have that provision because of the practice in the 18th century of the Crown in England, Great Britain, of giving emoluments to members of Parliament. And we did not want that going on.
Explain to us then, who steps in? I mean, you're an ethics lawyer. As I said at the beginning, Donald Trump has done everything differently. He's got Congress entirely on his side in terms of a Republican base. So who would actually step in and tell him that he is doing wrong?
Well,
If he
I'm
is.
not sure Congress is going to be on his side on this. Each member of Congress is in it for themselves, in their own district, if that. And I don't think the Republican members of Congress are going to put up with a situation where the president appears to be benefiting financially from his public office. In particular, I get back to this concern about money coming in from foreign governments, because that is specifically prohibited under our Constitution. So he is going to, at a minimum, have to make absolutely sure that dealings with the Bank of China, with sovereign wealth funds, these diplomats who are staying in the Trump hotels, all of that is going to have to be cleansed of any impression of a gift.
OK. Richard Painter, thank you very much. We should say we don't know what's going on at the moment. Of course, there have been denials of any impropriety in his business dealings and his mergings so far. Richard Painter, thank you very much.
I've been getting away with it all